Thanks for joining us for Political Talk on another PolitiPod Live. Tonight we'll go for a deep dive on one issue: what happened at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. I'm Tom Bickle.
And I'm Matt Nisanoff. Let's dish about the dinner. So we're going to look at it in a different way, which will be we'll try to figure out what it is we do know, what is the truth that we currently know, what are the things we think might have happened, or let's speculate a little bit, and we'll also get in some mention of people who are skeptical of the views that some of us will be sharing tonight. We'll have a couple of different viewpoints, and we'll also have what's just weird. What's weird about this thing? What's some things that might be of interest to you simply because they're weird? But we'll start with what do we know? And for starters, what we know is that there was an incident that happened at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, and it wasn't just the dinner. It wasn't just that there was somebody who had been a guest who hadn't been a guest recently, and that there was a big commotion. We do know that there are maps showing where people were. We know that there's a timeline of what happened when, and we know how it started and how it ended. What else do we know, guys, gals?
You know, we know that somebody got close, but not that close, to the president in a room full of very important people. We know that he
He
broke.
never got in the room.
Nope, never got in the room, but he got outside the room.
He was on a different level. Yes.
Right, right. Uh, and well, and I think that that's fine. And I'm glad he didn't get inside the room, and I'm glad it wasn't any worse. I guess what I'm getting at is that what if there was another person
Right. We'll
uh,
we'll well we'll get to that when we talk about
like that?
what could have happened and what where the speculation leads us. But for
Rank
right now, let's
speculation, my
just talk
favorite.
about the things that we do know happened.
We know that
We do
there's
know
a
that
suspect in. Oh, there's a suspect in custody. There seems to have been nobody severely injured or killed. Um,
we know that he was in
uh,
custody in part because the judge said, or a judge had said, that he was not being accorded his rights and that there was something happening that wasn't supposed to be happening to someone who was a suspect. And he did plead not guilty. So we know that that's something that did happen. From the video, and something we'll look at a little bit later, we know that there was a canine unit on the spot at the time, and the dog did seem to want to alert the officer who was guiding it, and that it didn't get across, and so we don't know what happened there, but we do know the dog did was there and did do something. We know that there's the Secret Service and others who reacted to the noise and started grabbing people from the cabinet and making them leave the room. That they grabbed J.D. Vance pretty darn quick and got him out the door or out the back of the stage. And that when they did grab Trump, that they actually dropped him before they got off the stage, but they got him out. They did the job of what they're supposed to do by protecting him. We know that RFK and his what would you call it, entourage, um, the people who were with him were all grabbed and walked over the tables to get them out of the venue and get them out there. And of course, they kind of forgot his wife. She was sort of shuffled to the back of the pack and followed along after they had gotten all the other people up and out. Um, what about
The
who
first
else?
casualty of the night, chivalry.
Exactly, right. Par for the course for this particular administration. Do we know anything else about anybody else in particular?
I mean, we know that we know they stripped all the clothes off of the suspect, the alleged shooter. We know that he, at least from outward appearance, seemed to be African American, and they did not kill him, which just maybe that should go into the speculation later. That's weird because usually, you know, every time they live, somebody shows a picture of Betty White and says, "Huh." So,
Right, right.
but good, I'm glad they didn't kill him.
Right.
Innocent until proven guilty and all that.
And we know Cash Patel was there. He grabbed Erica Kirk apparently and helped her. She was responding and crying and very emotional, and he helped guide her out and apparently sat her down. And there's pictures. Some press people did take pictures of him consoling her and getting her, what
Which
the response.
naturally is the sworn duty of the head of the FBI at a time of crisis is to comfort the nice blonde lady.
Exactly, exactly. We certainly
Which,
know who we're talking about. Okay, so I think that's almost all that we do know. And we will actually, we do. Maybe we should show that video of the hallway now because this is from the prosecutors. The prosecutor has released this video. It's much longer than what you're going to see, but you're going to see a couple of minutes of it. And it certainly shows, here you go, 25th, 8:23. And it shows this is the gym that's down the hall. And the fella who they're watching walked in and walked out of that room. That's why it's being shown. There's a guy with a long coat walking away. The next little part you'll see, I believe, a janitor walking the other way, checking the doors. And he's able to check the doors you see currently, and I believe they're all set. Then here's the access point for where people were going to. Now there's that guy in that long jacket, and he goes down that door, out that door. The circle's just around, and can you see the police officer with the K9 unit? The dog is at the doorway now, and the dog actually starts to walk in. And there's the guard pulls the dog away, and there's the guy with a rifle, runs through the metal detector. I guess. Let's see. There's 1, 2, 3. That's about 8 or 9 people with weapons at the ready. Here come the door that you saw just opening at the top. There's another 4 or 5 people who come in with weapons. So there were about 14 people who responded immediately. Certainly, the response was immediate. And as we mentioned, this is on a different level from where they were having the dinner. In fact, the doorway that you saw him go in and out of was the door that led to the front doors of the venue that had been where the red carpet was. So when people had come in several hours before, that's the hallway they walked into to come past this point to go down to the next level and get into where the dinner actually took place. As I said, the prosecutors are releasing that because they want to show that he was there and that he was armed, and that what they say is happening is, here's the video. But what it does show is that he's on a second level. He did not access the room where the VIPs or the visitors were. And other than the claim that there's a message or a note that he left behind, there's also no particular evidence of the individual or people that he was trying to go after. So it could have been trying to shoot some of the press people. Could have been trying to get some of the people in the cabinet, could have been trying to get anybody from the administration. That's what we don't know. And
It could also just be there could have been no specific target except for Cash, I guess. That'll come up later. It could have just been trying to shoot people.
well, there
right,
is the idea of the issue of the manifesto, right?
right, Absolutely.
That's
So I
true.
mean, if you're going
Right,
to talk
right.
about intent, that has an impact on it.
Right,
That's true.
right.
That's
And
true.
what is the manifesto saying? Who has an
No,
idea on what's going on with that?
I don't have that in front of me, but it discussed different levels of uh, planned violence. He expected that certain people were going to have to bite the big one, but there were others he would designate certain like innocents in the crowd. He didn't want to have to shoot anybody um, unless they acted against him, and certain members of law enforcement. And there were other people he figured he'd have to fight. Um, yeah.
Yeah, Hannah, you mentioned Kash Patel. What was that all about?
Yeah, so he specifically mentions in his in the manifesto not to injure Kash Patel. Yeah, and I think he's also trying not to, as sort of Tom alluded to, not hurt any sort of law enforcement protectory of people kind of people, unless like they're, specifically trying to take him down or whatever. But yeah, you know, um, yeah. So
So that's certainly part of it. So I guess the for starters, the fact that he didn't actually get close to whoever it is he was thinking of, if he, it's not really clear, I guess, unless you do read the manifesto, which I don't have in front of me, as to any specific individual. But he didn't get close. He was on the wrong level. Well, he was on a different level, and as you saw the response, there were by the end of it, there were 14 or 15 law enforcement folks with their weapons drawn who were right on top of him. Um, so
So
then there's.
if
Go ahead.
you point out that he didn't get close to the room where all the really important people are, and that's granted, but I'm not sure if you're trying to make another point by inference, like for example, yeah, it's maybe it's I don't know, people I feel like people use that to point out how to minimize. Well, it was only this, or it was only that, and he didn't get but so close. On the other hand, he got closer than he should have. He got past the metal detectors, uh, a baker's dozen of what looked like Secret Service people, or maybe half dozen, but a lot of folks um, that all seem to be standing around dicking with machinery, not really watching the door. Somebody comes sprinting full through. They're supposed to stop him. I don't know if they knew that. I mean, yeah, it's great that one of them shot the other one, and a great show of effort, if not of marksmanship. But he shouldn't have got that close. So uh, I don't know. Maybe this is again not the time for that brand of speculation. But
No, no, no.
I
This is
guess
the
we
perfect
shouldn't.
time.
I guess we shouldn't minimize it too much by saying that nothing bad really happened. I mean, a guy with two guns got in the goddamn door. It's kind of bad.
Yeah, various number of guns, and as you point out, he not only well, actually, he did literally go through the metal detector. He ran
Yeah,
right through the one working metal detector, or I don't know if it was working at that point, but as you saw, they were taking the second one down, and he ran through the metal detector that was still up.
yeah.
And yeah, he was armed with multiple weapons. I understand. I think my point is, yeah. So I don't know what I'm inferring, and you can take what you want from that because when you infer, you know.
Right.
But
Sure.
but at the same time, I think what I'm doing is trying to point out that the coverage of it, especially by the correspondents who were there, are all talking about that they're they're all they are implying that he did get into the room and that there was a direct threat against Trump and that they were there at the time that there was an assassination attempt and they weren't because he wasn't and he didn't get in. So it's a little bit different. Your point is valid. I agree with you. He shouldn't have ever gotten as close as he did. He shouldn't have even gotten into the building, much less been able to get to the floor above or the floor under it, whatever. I don't know if you still have that the picture of the levels.
I can bring that up, but I don't have it
The
immediately.
Okay, Well, while you're looking for that, but my point being that yes, I do agree with you. He should not have been able to get anywhere near as close as that, and yet the coverage of it is heavily implies that he got into the room and that he may, and even that he was able to get a shot off, or that he was shooting at Trump, which is not true at all. So I think that maybe the truth is something that also needs to be recognized.
Yeah, I think, one of the reasons that it's good to start with this thing of like, what do we know, is that, I think that we can hold, or at least I would hope that we can all hold this sort of nuance of uh, closer than it should have been, but also much further away than it could have been. Um, so it could have been a lot more scary. Um, yeah, so I think that those two things are true. Like we shouldn't, especially as we all know that news tends to spectacleize, I guess, you know, um, to be honest about what happened, um, but also, yeah, for better or worse,
It's a
he
mem
wasn't
right,
in
and
there
and
shooting.
and yeah, and what people remember sometimes is a little bit less accurate because of people's memories, and just that's just how people work, that kind of thing. That's how people are wired. When Hillary Clinton talks about landing on a landing strip for a visit in a foreign country, and she had to dodge bullets to get away from, when she was walking away from the plane and getting to where the ceremony, the people were, and then they have video of it and they show no shots fired. She's walking calmly. She's, it's a visit, a state visit. She's not under any distress or any fire. The people's minds kind of sometimes fill in the blanks a little bit of what you want, and it's a little bit more heroic to have been dodging bullets and making a heroic entrance, especially when you're talking so my point is that sometimes the mind plays tricks and you remember things differently. Thank you for bringing this slide up, Tom.
News.
And this is so where the action happened was on this terrace
I'll
level.
point out, to tag on to what you were saying. I'll point out news anchor Brian Williams did a similar thing. He said on a news broadcast one night that he was in a back of a helicopter and they were under fire and it was all very very glorious. It turned out it didn't happen and he had to get off the air for a while. It happens.
Exactly. So unlike wild off the cuff speculation that's completely misinformed, like what you get out of Fox News and get fined $787 million, and Glenn, uh, what's his name,
Back,
Glenn
Rick?
Beck,
back.
who comes up with these wild speculations about, who the people who are in other gun attacks, and how, knowing the motives and all this kind of stuff, which is just outright speculation, which is an absolute lie. It's not so much akin to that, but it's just sometimes the brain fills in the blanks the way you want them to, and then if there's evidence, then you got to reconsider what the actual thing is that people are saying, what you're saying, or what they are saying, because there is evidence. And it shows more along the lines of what actually, it shows literally what happened. Um, Now, actually, I do have a question about this. So this shows two levels, terrace level and a concourse level. Concourse level is where the ballroom is, which is where everybody's eating, or just starting to eat, or at least getting together. The terrace level, now, are those two boxes at the top of the concourse level the same two black boxes that are on the terrace level,
Yes,
or
I
are
believe
those
so.
two different sets of rooms, or are those the same?
Well, I believe
Well, there's
they've
connecting stairs.
right.
It says
There's
connecting stairs.
Those rounded rectangles on the bottom concourse level diagram says connecting stairs. And I believe they're meant to represent the lower level of the above figure where the guy was actually apprehended.
Gotcha.
If you, yeah. If you can take it full screen, it's easier to see.
Um,
But those, yeah, so those dots in the upper right, the orange one is where the suspect ran quickly towards a security checkpoint here, and he was apprehended at the red dot just a few what looks to be a few feet away.
Right. Right. Gotcha. Yeah. Yep.
yeah, I also want to point out, and correct me if this isn't something that you all don't agree with, um, that we might all have different opinions about what we think happened and all these things and whatever, but the narrative of like Trump facing assassination attempts has been one that his camp has used, and sort of uplifted to fit their own parts. So like we can disagree with what we think happened, and there will be some discussion coming up, I'm pretty sure, quite soon. But yeah, this narrative, whatever the source from the back is, they're going to use it to further their own ends. And so I think that's why it's really important to have this like set thing, and especially before we go into what I assume will have a trial. um if you're on a jury, that's important. If you don't, you're not supposed to speculate and whatever. It's the facts are what's important. So yeah, so it's
Yep.
good that we
Good
started
point.
with this. Like,
Good point. And Tom, you have mentioned previously about that idea of the Republican strategy, something they've either picked up from or exported to like-minded politicians in different countries. This idea of an assassination being a starting point for something else.
Yeah, there's a story out that Viktor Orban had, I want to say, gotten the idea from Vladimir Putin and his camp, and were prepared to try a stunt like that to influence his election, but for reasons I don't know, they never did. But it's been reported that it's a thing. It's not like I'm making this up out of my own head, out of whole cloth, or out of something else. It's a thing that is out there. It's a real thing that happens in the world.
Fair point. So
yeah,
I
broadly, like an imp rallies people behind you, as does any kind of attack, right? Think about the rallying of camaraderie after, is a terrible way to put it, but it's true, after 9/11 or after Pearl Harbor. There's that idea of like we all come together when something has happened. So
unity
it's not
behind
out
the
of left field.
office, not the man, because it's time to act, and we've got to
Right.
act with unity. Would now be a good time to show that other video, the fella from UCLA,
With the canine?
Newman,
Oh, Jeff Newton.
Jeff. I'm
Sure.
sorry, Jeff Newton.
Sure. Yeah. So what we've got here is a more skeptical point of view. I like to acknowledge the points where it kind of looks like these things are staged and hinky and just don't look right. And right after I want to say the next day, there's a former journalist named Jeff Newton, and he's out of the game, but he used to be a 60 Minutes producer and a senior producer at Vice on HBO and National Geographic, and he now has a little mountain cabins in Virginia, West Virginia. I want to say Virginia, but he's recently taken a few months ago taken to putting out videos about the goings on at a national level and in media, and of course there's been plenty to talk about in both venues. And he came out the next day after the White House Correspondents' video and had this to say.
Okay, look, the White House Correspondents' Dinner and the shooting incident last night. I just have to be honest with some of you guys. I'm so sick and tired of hearing about how they're all staged. It's really exhausting to have to even address this with rational people. The one where he was nicked in the ear and his ear wasn't blown off. It happens. Trust me, it happens. I was shot in Iraq, an entry wound up near my wrist and an exit wound in my forearm. Didn't hit any bones. It caused some damage, but they put the tendons popped out like a tangerine, and they just used their thumbs, pushed it back in, and put a couple stitches in there, stitched it right up. If it would have been, a couple of millimeters in a different direction, it probably would have ripped the bone of my arm in half. It happens. Trust me. All bullets don't cause massive damage, even ones from high-powered rifles. And maybe it hit something like a teleprompter and he had glass wounds. But it's not staged. Just stop making these arguments. Like, it's boring and stupid. A guy behind him was killed. That's not a staged incident. It's ridiculous to make these arguments. You've got 340 million people in this country. Look around you. There's a lot of crazy people thinking about crazy shit and killing lots of people. They think about it all the time. And Donald Trump just happens to be one of those people that people don't like. Some people in his own party don't like him. Some people on the Democratic side don't like him. Some independents don't like him. These aren't really people these are crazy people. They're the same people that go into your schools and kill the children. It's just the president has better security. If you look at the video of the guy running through security, there's multiple levels of security at those events, but these people are human too. The Secret Service and all those people around them, they're human. They get complacent. They think the place is locked down. They think the people before them did their job. It happens all the time. They're not supermen. And you know what? They're switched on pretty well. And by the way, they did their job. They stopped the guy from getting into the room where the president was. That's what their job is. We can talk about how insane it was for him to get that far with a shotgun and a pistol and all that, and knives and all that stuff. But ultimately, the goal is they have layers. And when a guy gets close to the president, the layers get tighter. And it gets more difficult to get closer to him. In this case, the guy blew right by them. And they apparently tackled him and shot him or whatever. I don't know. I don't know if they shot him. I'm not even reading it. It's like, I'm not even going to follow this story. It's so ridiculous. He's not even in the same room with them. When he gets in the same room and starts waving around weapons stuff, it becomes a different story. But up until that point, it's like a guy outside the White House gates, storming the gates. The president's inside behind a building. It's the same situation. Quit making a big deal out of it. And it was staged. I mean, think about how stupid that is, that people are going to give up their lives to be a part of a staged event and spend the rest of their life in prison. Just stop, okay? People don't like this guy, and lunatics don't like him. But they also don't like people like Joe Biden, and they don't, it happens. It just so happens to be happening a lot more with this guy, but just don't buy into this conspiracy bullshit. It makes us all look stupid, You can bring up all sorts of stats that you want to, but ultimately it comes down to the one where he was nicked in the ear, miraculously. I could show you, there's an exit wound there's an exit wound, tiny little scar. You see that little scar right there that's next to the pimple? That's the exit wound from my bullet wound in Iraq. You barely see it. Just don't talk.
Now, I'm not sure if it came through, but the last thing he says is, don't talk about things you don't know about. And I love, since I've already jumped in here, let me continue by saying I love how salty he is. He's just so pissed at the idea. And I get that. But I'd like to quibble with a couple other things. His arm has a scar. There's a scar. Not a big one. Okay. I'm sure you took a big old round and it made its way very politely out the other end of your arm. I get you. And what was the other thing? Somebody died. And that is one of those things at the other assassination attempt. Somebody died, and that brings some gravitas to it. That lets you know not everybody was in on the joke, or at least if they were, something didn't go to plan. But it's not just a street theater production at that point. I got it. On the other hand, people in this administration are committing crimes all day, every day, twice on Sunday. People are going to jail after this administration, and whether it's for dirty laundry when it comes to Bitcoin or shorting oil futures or shooting somebody from a rooftop or tricking some idiot to climb to a rooftop. People are willing to do crazy things in service of this president or in service against him. So I get what he's saying, but just because somebody died doesn't mean that it's not a put up job. I'm not saying that with certainty, but it doesn't necessarily disprove things.
Right. And as you pointed out, it's a strategy of the conservative right wings that an attempt at an assassination is a thing. It's a real thing they do, and they've done
Yeah.
it before. They'll do it again, and it helps create drama. And as Hannah pointed out, if there's a serious situation like that, the instinct is we have to all come together and we have to all
And-
get behind the guy because now it's a matter of national unity. But the fact that he is so angry about this, the fact that he's constantly that's like a 3 or 4 minute clip, and he must have said it's stupid like 12
yeah,
times,
he's very
and
dismissive and salty.
that it's boring
Makes you look stupid.
boring to speculate in that. I don't know.
But I mean,
think something
yeah,
else is
it's the
going on
opposite
there.
of boring. It's fairly entertaining to
Right,
really
it's very entertaining.
nerd out on that
And
stuff.
it's
That's why
sort of
people do it.
when you just call out that everything is stupid and boring, that's kind of pathetic. And
Well,
go ahead.
oh, I just want to say, I mean, it feels like we're moving into the what do we want to speculate about? So put it
Oh
right
yeah,
down if
we're
you're not ready to
absolutely
go into that. But, I also think that it's, at least from my perspective, um, this reporter seems to, have a view about, um, a conspiracy theory, a false flag, or whatever you want to call it, versus just a naturally occurring event. And I feel like, uh, again, we can have different opinions and whatever, but I do want to say that there's um that seems like a false binary. Like think about Gabrielle Giffords, who was shot in Arizona, 15 years ago or something, that was neither a random occurrence well, okay, in my opinion, that it was neither a random occurrence nor a false flag, but it was an episode of stochastic terrorism, or that
Yeah, that doesn't have
Planned
to be an
Parenthood or
opinion. I think
something.
that's been
Yeah.
proven.
I mean, but some people might think it's a conspiracy. I don't know. But that, like, or that, like, Planned Parenthood in, like, Colorado that a few years ago was, like, had bomb threats or something, like, a day after somebody was like, somebody should call it a bomb threat to that, right? Like, that wasn't necessarily a big conspiracy. And it wasn't necessarily, I mean, I guess it was probably a lone actor or a small group of actors, but people planting it in people's head. Um, Sorry if I disappeared for a second, but there was still like the idea planted in people's head there, so there can be, it doesn't have to be this binary of like a conspiracy of 100 people that came up with it or a lone gun person or whatever. Um, you know, so yeah, I guess I would like to state that there's a lot of in-betweeny, like, hot rhetoric, stirring stuff up, whatever, heated
There
rhetoric.
could be, right. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's certainly possible. I would also point out, though, that with Donald Trump specifically, when things happen to him, he has a very long memory. He does not like when people do things or say things that are not in line with his own self reflection and how he sees himself or wants to see himself. And for instance, that 30 years ago, there was an incident where he and the comedian Rosie O'Donnell got into a tiff. I don't remember what the original thing was about. I don't really care right now. It's happened a long time ago. She said something, he didn't like it. He took offense. 30 years to just recently, within a couple of months, he brought that up. And he's brought it up during the campaigns, and he brought it up every couple of years, and he's never forgotten it. And he always is ready to talk about it, and he's always ready to complain and insult her and, you know, call for her to. She's already left, actually. She now lives in Ireland, but he said, oh, she should stay there. She should just not even be in America ever again, and blah, blah, blah. My point is, that was from an argument that they had 30 years ago. and he brings it up constantly. If someone actually tried to assassinate him, I think that he'd be bringing it up weekly, at least as many times as he brings up Rosie O'Donnell at some argument from 30 years ago, because it would be literally an attack on him, and he would not just use it for fundraising and to sell tampons for people to tie to their ears or whatever it is that he did after that one, after Butler, and with this one where he went straight back to the White House and had a press conference about how he needs a ballroom so that he can be safe at his events, which, by the way, this was not. This was not a White House event. This was an event by the White House Correspondents Association, a separate entity, a group not run by the White House. So it wouldn't have been in the ballroom of if the ballroom existed already, it wouldn't have been in there because it's not something that he would have directed to happen. And I'm sure he would be happy to tell the correspondents to go take a hike and find their own place for their little event, just because of how antagonizing he is to the press at any and all times. But so I think that's something that could be considered or given consideration in the whole thing. We have talked a little bit more about speculation. We've talked about the skeptics to the speculation. We've talked about um, all these things. What about the stuff that's just plain weird? I think we should move on to that sort of points of interest in what's weird. Beforehand, I think you mentioned earlier about the deal with Kash Patel. The shooter specifically mentions that he would want to avoid having interacting with Patel, and or that he would want to take it easy on Patel. He wouldn't want to, unless confronted by him, that he would stay away from him. What else was weird? What else did you think, or what else has popped up here? That's weird.
One of the things that I think is weird is this isn't the first assassination attempt at a sitting president at this location. It was also where there was an assassination attempt on Nixon in 1981, I think.
I believe it was Reagan.
Reagan. Yeah, sorry. Nixon. That's who was president in 1981. Nixon had already pushed out by then. But yeah, so like it's interesting that there was already an assassination attempt at this location.
That's right, John Hinckley Jr., who I believe he stood outside the doors. He didn't go in. He just sat there and waited until the group of Reagan and his entourage were leaving, and he took a shot. And there's a famous video of a Secret Service man jumping in the way of the bullets in order to protect the president, and taking bullets. And the press secretary Brady, who
I think so.
took a shot in the head and had to deal with that. So yeah, that's right. This has been a location where presidents have actually been shot and attempted assassinations. I would also point out it's like as we talked about them being a tool for campaigns. It seems kind of interesting that it's not the first one for Trump himself. It's been the fourth or fifth. I've lost track of how many there have been, but there have been several. There's the earshot in Butler. There was the guy at the golf course. There was a guy who was arrested outside of Mar-a-Lago trying to get in. He wasn't. I don't believe Trump was even in Mar-a-Lago at the time, but they caught the guy before he got into Mar-a-Lago. It seems remarkable that there have been so many times that this has come up to me.
Yeah. Well, was it during the Obama administration where the person was shooting into the White House from the streets?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think.
that's right. Somebody shot into the Obama White House where somebody shot through the gate.
Yeah. Um,
Actually,
one of the other things.
there was also a guy during the Obama administration who hopped the fence and was walking in the hallways of the White House.
Right.
They caught the guards caught up and tackled him in the hallway. He didn't interact with anybody else, but the fact that he was able to jump the fence and the fact that he was basically just wandering around aimlessly in the White House, that's kind of scary.
Yeah. What was the other thing? Oh, this is Trump's also his first White House Correspondents' Dinner since his first election. He had been there before. I think there's some people that think that the sort of teasing he got from Seth Meyers or somebody, or John Oliver, one of them might have convinced him to try and run. But yeah, this is something he always had kind of refused to do up until this year.
Right? There was, I believe it was, Seth Meyers was the host, and Obama did a roast of Trump. In between the roasting by Obama and the stuff that Myers was saying, that's what they claim was something that spurred him on to run for president because he wanted to show him and retaliate. Not terribly thick-skinned, I think, is the subtext.
I
Yeah,
mean,
for
you can
sure.
see the
Can't figure it
versions.
out.
So there was
Go ahead.
also Tom, anything about MAGA?
Yeah, I'm surprised. The MAGA people love conspiracy theories. They're QAnoners. Where they go one, they go all, and they all go to the same stupid conclusions. And they love that stuff. They can't see the sunrise in the morning without thinking there's a plot behind it somehow, and that it's Biden. And yet, I haven't heard anybody blame this on Biden. I haven't heard anybody blame this on space aliens or lizard people or Jewish space lasers or any of that. And I don't know why. It strikes me as funny that no one is trying to carry that banner. That I haven't seen it percolate up out of their bubbles and into mine. That this is something other than what it seems, and it's all part of, I don't know, the Lord's plan or Trump's plan or our Lord Trump's whatever. And I'm surprised they're not laying another layer of intrigue over the top of this, just because it's more fun that way. You could learn history out of a bunch of books, or you could just make a bunch of stuff up every day out of whole cloth. And I'm surprised they're not doing that more.
Yes, that's Dr. Lord to you.
My bad.
Yeah.
So I am surprised at MAGA, and I don't know why. I don't know if they're just deflated by the creeping pedophilia that they realize they've been soaking in for these 16 months or whatever it's been, or if they're too busy filling their diesel truck to carry one person all over Hell's Half Acre instead of something affordable and woke. I don't know. I don't know why they're so quiet on that end.
Yeah,
Wait, side note, tell me where this place is that's both affordable and woke. I would
Right.
like to move there.
You let me know. So yeah, I'm waiting for them to come up with another pizza parlor or again, space aliens, always good for a laugh. The Jewish folks, always convenient scapegoat.
Well,
And
actually, it would be interesting. What I haven't seen is any statement by Marjorie Taylor Greene or Liz Cheney or any of the people who are former MAGA or appear to be former MAGA right now. And so, yeah, it's not only MAGA that's sort of acting, as you're pointing out, that the MAGA is acting kind of irregular. It seems like the whole side, that the Republican side is acting a little not to not
They're just
to
not
not
themselves.
to par.
They're demotivated.
Yeah.
The morale is down, I think.
It's also
We've taken all the fun out of
it's
pedophilic
also
Nazism.
it's also interesting that it hasn't been used to spin like a toughness narrative. There hasn't been, especially with like Hegseth or even like Patel, kind of um being in trouble for
Yeah.
his like drinking or whatever, to be like, look at this person we took down. He didn't even get close to the president, whatever. Um, if they're not going to run with look at how close he got, why not run with look at how close he didn't get? But
Yeah,
yeah,
some chest beating.
it hasn't really seemed to further anything. Like, it is kind of one of the things is like, what it is the country like meaningfully different now than it was 2 weeks ago, with regards to this. Obviously, we're falling off a
Well,
cliff,
does
and
it
that's all right.
right? But does it show that the worm has turned, so to speak? That the real strength that Trump has always had has been his base, and it is worth noting that while his popularity has taken a nosedive and is the lowest of any president since they took polls, so there's nothing to compare it to other than that it is at the very bottom of the
History of
barrel.
written language, yeah.
But with that said, if you break down the numbers and look at them, that loss has come from mostly independents and from Democrats, not from Republicans. Republicans have, from the numbers that I have seen, are staying right with him, over 80% support and 80 to 84%, which is almost no change whatsoever. So his base is if it's the base that's finally starting to erode from 84 to 80%, that's still quite a chunk. But if that is a downward trend that continues, that's the sort of thing where he loses his support enough that even Republicans would consider challenging him and consider how to get at him. They're scared of him because of his base and because they fear being challenged by his base. But if that base is slowly starting to erode, that's a very good sign because that means that even the people we need the most to challenge them, which is other Republicans, may be on the turn and may be able to finally say, hey, I was okay with the fraudulent charity and I was okay with the fraudulent business and I was okay with doing all the horrible things he did in his first term, and I was okay with the horrible things that he started to do in the second term. But pedophilia is maybe a real issue that actually will stop them. And
Any
on top
time
of
would be
that,
fine.
any yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and
that's
high
true.
gas prices.
Right, gas prices and food. When you're instead of paying $54 to fill the old diesel there, you get $102 bill. All of a sudden, your priorities kind of clear up for you, maybe. But if that's what's happening, that'd be great. I mean, that would certainly be welcomed and certainly be. It's good that the independents are figuring it out and starting to turn away from that because that's why he's in the bottom of the barrel on the approvals. Something like what 38% or something, and 64% actively against him. So, well, that's good to see.
I keep
Way
looking
to
for
win.
values that he'll throw overboard that where finally someone will stop and go, hey, that was important to me. Put that back. And they won't do it. There's nothing he can burn that they won't go, yep, that needed to be burned. And we're down to core values like me personally. Please don't kill me personally. We've dug down to the hard pan and we're jackhammering into, like you said, pedophilia, open corruption, colluding with the Russians. And there's a core of Americans who are like, LOL, long hair don't care. He's my guy. And there's not much else we can reach for other than chewing each other up for meat that we could throw overboard and have anybody give a shit. It's breathtaking.
Well, it seems like it's heading in
Yeah,
the
it does make me
direction that we're
wonder.
going to see.
Makes me wonder if there's a sunk cost fallacy happening with some of these MAGA people.
In for a penny, in for a pound.
Yeah. So, because I mean, also like who, there's always been this idea of like, yeah, we don't like his pedophilia, but are we going to vote for a Democrat?
There's I think there's also
So,
an air of inevitability or of disconnection where we feel so disconnected from our government and so powerless from things at the national level. And people, much like we have been watching for the last 10 years, things go ways we didn't want them to and almost can't stand to watch them to. Old white racists have been getting that feeling for the preceding 20 years. They're watching women and people of color getting more rights and wokeness, encroaching upon their mental headspace, whatever. And so I feel like they're just giving it back. And I think that to them it's just sport. I think there's a certain category of American who never really wanted to get into politics, discussion wise, or learn more about it. And I don't blame them. It's hard. It's not fun. It's disillusioning. It's hard. It's difficult to be into politics. It's not entertaining. Somebody came along and made it entertaining, but it gave them a chance to jeer at all the people they've been told they hate, and it had no consequence. Like I say, I guess what I'm trying to reiterate is they're again disconnected from their federal government. They don't have any control. Politician's been a bad word for decades now, and so it just gets easy to go, they're all corrupt, it's Washington, it's my taxes, and be ignorant about a lot of things like immigration and things like that. And so you just you feel like there's no, if you haven't got any control, then you certainly can't do any harm. And so you can just be as awful as you want and elect people as terrible as they want to be. And it all doesn't matter because it never really comes out in the wash, and it's also a rigged game, and it doesn't really mean anything when you get down to it. Well, it's starting to mean something when you get down to it, and it's starting to crash into. I don't think people. I don't think people properly appreciated that until now.
yeah, I think there's also a degree to, I'm going to call like a sort of a Doge mentality of just like, I don't care what happens as long as I was in control of it. So I think there's some people who are just like, like, yeah, this will maybe hurt me, but like, look at how much it's like fucking you all up. Oh, sorry. Look at how much it's like messing you all up because the guy I voted is like burning it all down. They don't really sort of reconcile, or maybe it's kind of mixed with what you were saying. Like, oh, maybe I thought it was all going to burn down anyway. So at least my person's burning it down or whatever. But I
Yeah,
do
and I'd
think
like
that
to
there's a
point out,
degree of that too.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to step on you.
No, I was just going to say, I think there's a degree of that too, of just like, LOL, look, we're tearing it apart.
And I'd like to point out that 4 or 5 years ago, we had the COVID thing that devastated this country, devastated the planet the way it was mishandled. Hundreds of thousands of people sickened and dead. We had more bodies than we knew what to do with. That's the level of, it doesn't get it much worse rather than zombie movies and nuclear winter. It doesn't get much worse. It devastated the economy. Grandma's gone forever. And yet we voted this guy back in. I think there's a layer of this country who just doesn't give a damn because they don't feel like it matters. They don't feel like their interests. I feel like people get so disillusioned that they truly don't care. They can't imagine caring.
Well, we'll have to see what happens in the upcoming elections, not only the midterms, but the next presidential. We'll see if he figures out that he's not really able to run for a third term. And maybe this whole talk about his supporting, he made some kind of a statement about how a Vance Rubio ticket would be really a wonderful thing for the country. So we'll see if that's not something that he actually follows through on in support of. And we'll see if people will buy it from Vance.
I feel good about our chances there, but I've been wrong before.
Well, one other thing that we can continue to mention, not only here, but throughout time, will be the Epstein count up. And that's something that we do here every episode because we have to. And the number of days since the unredacted Epstein list has not been released at this point is 3,984 days and counting.
Until
Thanks for joining.
until some glorious sunny day when we can finally stop the count. I look forward to it.
It would be wonderful, and the unredacted version has been seen by members of Congress, and that's been a turning point for some of even the hardcore MAGA folks who have seen some of the stuff in there, and it's really been the thing that has pushed them over the edge. So perhaps, the necessity for it to be unredacted, which was self-evident from the start, is reinforced by the fact that even the MAGA people, even the hardcore MAGA, when they see it, they go, "Oh well, that's over." And speaking of being over, thanks for joining us at PolitiPod Live for Political Talk. You're welcome to join us every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, right here for PolitiPod Live. If you want political laughs, join us and a half dozen of our friends for our monthly political comedy podcast, PolitiPod. You'll find at soundcloud.com/PolitiPod.
I'm Tom Bickle.
I'm Hannah Soldner.
And I'm Matt Nisanoff saying goodbye.